it's Amy, and I'm here to do the wrap-up of not my next 5 books, but actually my next 10 books. I am behind, and I just want to catch up, and so I'm going to do this as quick as possible because no one wants to be watching a 30-minute video about wrap-up. So I'm just going to dive right into the next book, which is book number 21, and that is They All Looked Up by Tommy Welsh. This is a book that I actually ended up DNFing. I got about 2/3 of the way through this book, and I just couldn't anymore. I couldn't find anything that was redeeming about this book. I found all the characters just and the storyline just wasn't intriguing enough. I kept reading as long as I did because I wanted to know what happened at the end, but then it just got to the point where I'm like, no. So I DNF'd it, but I did end up giving it a 1 out of 5 star because I feel like I got through enough of it to really give it a rating. So that was They All Looked Up by Tommy Welsh. And then the next book is Geekerella by Ashley Poston, and this is obviously a Cinderella retelling. And I found this book so charming and so likable. I actually finished this book in one day, I believe, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yes, there are some aspects to it that reminded me of Hilary Duff's movie, Cinderella movie. Can't remember the name of it right now, but so it reminds me of that movie, and then has aspects of Ever After with Drew Barrymore, and then the basic Cinderella story. So it's not hugely different than any other Cinderella story, but I found it very enjoyable. And I did appreciate that the main guy, Prince Charming, actually had a strong role, and I liked their relationship, Ella and Darren's relationship together. I liked how she incorporated different aspects of the Cinderella story, and it's a really great book. I really enjoyed it from start to finish, and I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 star rating. And how that broke down is you have pace, plot development, and insightfulness is 8 out of 10. Quality of writing, characters, and ease of reading is 9 out of 10, and enjoyability was 10 out of 10 for an overall rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. So moving on to the next book, book 23, and that is Beastly Bones by William Ritter. This is the second book. I think it's the Jacoby series, the first book being Jacoby, and so this continues to follow Jacoby and Abigail. Jacoby is a detective, Abigail is his assistant, and I read the first book. I didn't really enjoy it, but I was looking for an audiobook, and my library had this audiobook, so I picked it up, and I did enjoy the audiobook. And so you follow Jacoby and Abigail on this specific case. It felt like a huge just build up and setup for the next book. That's really all I felt like it was. It wasn't a hugely satisfying ending. I did like Jacoby a lot more in this book. He was a lot more likable and kind to Abigail. I felt like he gave Abigail some respect, and then Abigail had some really good character growth, and so I am looking forward to continuing on in this series. Okay, so overall I gave that a 3.25 out of 5 stars, and how that broke down is insightfulness got a 5 out of 10 stars, pace a 6 out of 10, and then quality of writing, plot development, characters, and enjoyability 7 out of 10 for an overall rating of 3.25 stars out of 5. Okay, moving on to the next book, and that is Indelible by Katie Carter. And can we just take a moment? This cover is absolutely beautiful. It is my favorite cover of hers in this series. All of her covers are beautiful. So this is the 3rd book in the Insurrection series, and if you've been around my channel at all this year, you've heard me talk about this series numerous times. So this is a young adult science fiction series. It's absolutely amazing. It follows Sailor and her 3 friends, and they are just a fantastic group of girls, and I just love that Sailor is flawed, but she grows so much throughout the series, and this was an amazing ending to the entire series. And so overall I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and how that broke down was pace and plot development was 8 out of 10, quality of writing, characters, insightfulness, ease of reading was 9 out of 10, and then enjoyability was 10 out of 10 for an overall rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. Moving on to the next book, and that is Daughter of the Pirate King by Tricia Levenseller. I read this book during the Book Buddy-a-thon, and I enjoyed buddy reading it. This book follows the daughter of the Pirate King, and she goes undercover as a prisoner on a rival pirate ship to find a piece of this map. And that is the entire plot of the entire book. And so, as much as the ending was interesting and I loved the twist at the end, I wanted more out of this book. I wanted more piratiness. I wanted some swashbuckling, fighting from pirates, and you really didn't get any of that. All you really got was a whiny girl who talked about how dirty this pirate ship is and how clean her pirate ship is compared to this and how clean she is compared to all these people. And it wasn't so much, it wasn't that she mentioned it once or twice or 5 times. She mentioned it almost every 5 pages about how dirty her surroundings were. I'm just like, come on, enough. We get it. You're clean. You're a clean pirate. You're a girl. We get it. Shut up. So overall, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It doesn't sound like I actually enjoyed it, but the ending was intriguing and it was enough for me I want to continue on in this series. So how all of that broke down was insightfulness was a 5 out of 10. Pace and characters were 6 out of 10, and then quality of writing, plot development was 7 out of 10, enjoyability was 8 out of 10, and ease of reading was 9 out of 10. It was definitely a very easy YA book to get into. So if you are 13, 14, I think you will really enjoy it, but as a 33-year-old, I really just got annoyed with the angst that the main character had. But the ending was intriguing. So, moving on to the next book, and that is I do have this book. So the next book is Walk on Earth, a Stranger by Rae Carson. This book follows Lee, who has this magic ability to sense gold in the earth, whether that's in the ground or in water, and it's a secret among just her and her parents. And then something happens that puts her life in danger, and so she is forced to escape her home and she flees. So I thought it was going to be more of a fantasy magical story, but it was really just about her journey across the United States and all the things that happened. I enjoyed it. I do have to say that there were too many misfortunes along the way. After about the 10th misfortune, I was just like, come on, seriously, I don't see it being this terrible. And so that really did put a hindrance for me in this book, but I did enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to continuing on in this series. And so if you were thinking about picking this up, just know that it's not really your typical fantasy story. It's more of a historical fiction story with magical realism aspects. So I'm looking forward to continuing on this series and hoping that the next book will be even more magic and not less historical fiction, but just more magic. I just want more magic in the next story. So overall, I gave this book a 3.75 out of 5 stars, and how that broke down was pace, plot development, insightfulness was 7 out of 10, quality of writing, characters, enjoyability was 8 out of 10, and ease of reading was 9 out of 10. The next book that I finished was Bridge to Haven by Francine Rivers, and this book was on my quarterly TBR and I wanted to finish something. So I picked this book up and I was very disappointed in it. First of all, any contemporary book that is this long, at least 100 pages of this book could have been cut. Like, a huge editing job could have been done and it would have been a little bit more enjoyable. So this book follows Abra, who her mother gave birth to her under the bridge, and she just left her there basically to die. And Pastor Zeke found her, and so he brought Abra to the hospital and then brought her into her home. But then 5 years later, under some circumstances, he gave her to another family, and that really just broke her, and it sent her on this journey of just, when she's 18, she runs away from home with this boy, and she ends up in Hollywood, and she wants to be somebody. She wants to make a difference. She wants to be somebody to somebody. And so you just follow her journey of redefining who she is and making poor decisions, and then just coming to the point where she wants to come home, but she doesn't think she can because she's burned every bridge to home. And so underlining, it's basically a prodigal son story. So if you look at it that way, I think it would have been a beautiful story. But then you just add into really poor foster and adoption, like, story in there. Like, you have a pastor who abandons a child, basically, and there's no counseling, there's no explanation, there's nothing, there's just cut off from who she saw as daddy. And then you have Pastor Zeke, who the only solution he had for anything was, I'll pray about it. I'll pray for you. No, sometimes you have to take action. And so that just drove me nuts, because that was the only solution they ever gave was, well, I'm praying about it, praying that she will come to her senses. Sometimes someone needs to know that they're being fought for. And that was the huge thing. It's like she didn't realize she was being fought for. And then you have the love interest, and he started out as her brother. And then he becomes the love interest. And I knew where it was going from the very beginning, and it just made me cringe. And the ending was really unsatisfying. So, okay, so overall, I gave this book a 2.5 out of 5 stars. And how that broke down was quality of writing was 8 out of 10. Francine Rivers does know how to write a great sentence. But there's a difference between knowing how to write a great sentence and telling a good story. And she did not tell a good story with her great writing. Okay, so, and then you have insightfulness and ease of reading was 5 out of 10. And then pace, plot development, characters, enjoyability was 4 out of 10 for an overall rating of 2.5 out of 5 stars. I feel really bad for giving a Francine Rivers book that low of a rating, but it just wasn't enjoyable. And then the next book is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and this book follows Lucy and Joshua, and they work for the same publishing company. And at one point they were separate publishing companies, but they merged, and Joshua is the administrative assistant to one co-CEO, and Lucy is the administrative assistant to the other co-CEO, and they just have this rivalry amongst each other, and it's just a fantastic story. Yes, it follows your typical run-of-the-mill romantic comedy, storyline where, you start with hating each other and then they end up not hating each other. And so, yes, you know from the back of the book that Lucy and Joshua are going to somehow go from hating each other to not hating each other. But Sally does a way of reinventing that story in a way that just makes it something new, and it was just so enjoyable. I really enjoyed the tension between Lucy and Joshua. I loved that there were reasons why they would hate each other and why they would be rivals. It wasn't just because he said something stupid once and she holds a grudge. There's actual reasons why he would hate her, why she would hate him, and why he would hate her. And I just loved their journey. Their journey was just so good, and Sally does an amazing job of just building tension between Lucy and Joshua, and it's so good. It's so good. And I read this book mainly on a beach, which was fantastic. And so I highly recommend this book if you're looking for a good contemporary romance. You do need to be okay with a little extra spice in it, because there is some spice in this book. So if you're not okay with that, then probably don't pick it up. But if you are, then definitely recommend this book. And I have to mention that this is Sally Thorne's debut novel. I'm so looking forward to reading more by her, because she just blew it out of the water on this one. So overall, I gave that book a 4 out of 5 stars. And how that broke down is you have insightfulness, 7 out of 10, pace, plot development, and characters, 8 out of 10, and quality of writing, enjoyability, and ease of reading was 9 out of 10, for an overall rating of 4 out of 5 stars. So the next one is The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and I absolutely loved this book. It was such a beautiful story. So it follows Mallory and Ryder. You have Mallory and Ryder when they were 11, and they were in the same terrible, awful foster home. It was an awful experience. And Ryder was Mallory's protector. And some circumstances happened, and they are taken out of the home, and Mallory is actually taken in by another couple who ends up adopting her. And then the story picks up when she's 18 and she's getting ready to go into her senior year of high school, and she's decided to, instead of finishing with homeschool, she wants to finish her last year of high school in actual school. And so she rocks into school, and on her first day she encounters Ryder again, and she has not seen him since they were taken out of their foster home. And it's just them rekindling their friendship, and it's just a beautiful story of friendship and redemption, and how you should face your fears, and how when you have friends that are alongside of you that it's so much easier to face your fears. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. And it's a beautiful story of what, when you love someone, how that can change them. And I just absolutely loved it. I loved Mallory's story. I loved Ryder's story. I loved them together. It was so beautiful. And I also loved Mallory's adoptive parents. They were so supportive and loving, and they disciplined her, and they made mistakes. But when they make mistakes, they come clean to their mistakes, but it doesn't negate the discipline and authority they have over Mallory, and I really appreciate that. So I highly recommend this story, especially if you like Jennifer L. Armentrout's writing. It's just as beautiful as any of her other writing. So good, and it's just amazing. So definitely recommend this book. So overall, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and how that broke down is pace, plot development, and insightfulness was a 7 out of 10. Characters were an 8 out of 10, and then quality of writing, enjoyability, and ease of reading was 9 out of 10, for an overall rating of 4 out of 5 stars. Then the last book I'm going to talk about is What Happened to Goodbye by Sarah Dessen. I read this during the Reading Double Readathon a couple weeks ago, and I read it during the weekend, and I absolutely enjoyed it. So this book follows McLean, and her dad, they jump around to different cities, and in every city, McLean reimagines herself. She gives herself a new name. She gives herself a new personality, whether she's going to be a cheerleader or whether she's going to be an academic. And then her dad land in Lakeview, and she is getting ready to reimagine herself and decide who she wants to be. And somehow, during other circumstances that happen, she just ends up becoming herself. And it's her rediscovering who she is and what she likes, and really finally, for the first time, embracing who she is, and, you know, healing from the past and all of that. And so with every Sarah Dessen book, you have this like fluff piece that's up here, and then you have the deeper piece. And I just absolutely love this story. I thought the fluff piece was great, but I also just loved the depth that it went to, and I really liked this book. So if you like Sarah Dessen, I definitely recommend reading this book, or if you want a different book of hers to read because you didn't like one of her others, I highly recommend picking this one up. It was so good, so good. So overall, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and how that broke down was pace, plot development, and insightfulness was 7 out of 10. Characters were 8 out of 10, and quality of writing, enjoyability, and ease of reading was 9 out of 10, for an overall rating of 4 out of 5 stars. Oh my gosh, guys, that was a lot of talking and a lot of books. Thank you for sticking with me. I just really wanted to get caught up. I didn't want to have to make 2 different videos, so there we go. I'm going to hopefully be able to edit it down to a reasonable time limit. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. So guys, if you read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them down below. Guys, I hope you're having a great reading month, and I will see you on the flip side.